So our last presentation this morning is entitled Research and Development for Sustainable Mining Future at the Bradshaw Research Institute for Minerals and Mining. So Professor John Steene is a director at BRIMM at the University of British Columbia. He leads major international research studies on innovation and sustainable development in the resource sector. These include transitioning into new digital business models, technology ecosystems, innovation strategy, and performance in mega capital, over $1 billion research projects. He has advised the BC Mining Innovation Roadmap for the Mining Association BC and the Critical Mineral Strategy for the BC Provincial Government. From 2020 to 2024, John served as chair of the Mining Biotech Consortium MAP, which included Teck and Rio Tinto. He's currently on the technical committee for the International Rio Tinto Centre for Future Materials, which includes 5 universities, including UBC. So please join me in welcoming Professor John.
Thank you. Good morning, and thanks for coming out on a fairly chilly morning. For me, this is chilly because I'm in Vancouver most of the time. So thank you again for the warm welcome. What I'd like to do is give an overview of BRIMM and explain why we're here. We look to the north of BC and look at the Yukon and see a fabulous opportunity. So I think what we're here to do is really to try to establish research and development connections to advance the mining and research and development in mining in the Yukon, and also to partner with the University of the Yukon. We've had some partnerships there that have been going on for a few years, particularly with Guillaume Nielsen, and those have been very productive partnerships. So I'll give an overview of what BRIMM's doing, and hopefully that will trigger some thoughts, some conversations, and we can follow up later on today, maybe over a cup of coffee during the break. So a little bit about BRIMM and about the background. The history of BRIMM is that it really was the vision of Dr. Peter Bradshaw, a mining entrepreneur. And Peter saw that at UBC, we are a very large university. We have about 60,000 students across 2 campuses in Vancouver and also in Kelowna and the Okanagan. We have about 8,000 staff, including professional staff, researchers, faculty. We're very big, but with size comes bureaucracy and silos. So it's one of those things. So one of the problems that Peter saw with UBC was there's mining research that's happening all over UBC across different faculties. We don't have a department of mining. We don't have a faculty of mining. We have mining research that's spread out across the whole of UBC, across the faculties of applied science in several departments, including mining engineering. We have earth and ocean sciences that does mining research. In the Sort of Business School, there's also research and interest in mining. And even in the Faculty of Forestry with mine site remediation, there's interest in mining research. And what was happening is we were doing all this research in silos. So when industry tended to look at us as a potential research partner, what they were seeing is almost like the problem of dark matter in the universe. It was so siloed, it wasn't very visible to the outside, and people didn't know who to connect with. So the mandate for BRIMM and what Peter has done for UBC is said, look, why don't we put up a research centre which doesn't necessarily do anything new, but brings together all of the research capability across UBC and matches that with industry problems, so really big industry challenges. And that's really been my journey as director over the past 4 years, is trying to do that. And it's been a huge journey of cultural change. People say that cultural change happens slowly in universities. In fact, it happens one retirement at a time. That might be true, but we really are changing the way we work with each other and changing the way we work with industry, which has been really, really exciting. When I first arrived, people didn't think that this was possible to change the culture and change the partnership habits of established professors, but we're getting there, and it's really changing the opportunities that UBC has to work with industry. So Peter has so far donated about $3.5 million to BRIMM. He says that subject to funding requirements and getting other partners on board, he'll also donate another $5 million to BRIMM. So this is a very important partnership we have with Dr. Peter Bradshaw. So we have a number of goals that we want to achieve, but it's really, we know when we will be successful because we've started to have impacts on really significant industry initiatives across Canada, but also across the world. One thing that's happened just this year, which has been really exciting, is UBC BRIMM has been asked to join the Rio Tinto Centre for Future Materials. And that's a $150 million initiative from Rio Tinto, collaborating with 5 universities from around the world, including the University of British Columbia. So this has really enabled us to, really lifted us onto the world stage, and that's something that wouldn't have happened 4 years ago. So that's really exciting. So one thing that's a lot of things are coming together at the right time, and I don't need to tell you the critical metals story. I mean, we're all familiar with it. But I want to say what an impact this is having in Vancouver and at the University of British Columbia as well. The background on critical metals really has given a lot of impetus, a lot of momentum to BRIMM, and I'll explain this in a bit more detail. But I think mining is really having a moment at the University of British Columbia. When I arrived from Australia, you can probably tell from the accent that I come from somewhere else, in 2019, to really change the culture of research in mining at UBC. Mining at UBC was not attractive. There were some researchers who were doing the work, but really we were being sidelined a lot by particular interests at UBC, which were very distrustful of mining, very distrustful of the research that was done in mining, and extremely distrustful of any research that might be happening in partnership with companies. So this is the backdrop in which I came to UBC. So we've been trying to change the narrative, and part of that narrative is that mining can be a force for good. And a lot of the mining research and development that we see is about limiting the impact of mining, making sure mining's done in a responsible way, but also cleaning up the negative legacies, like we saw with the Faro mine presentation before. There are lots of positive things we can do, and sure, there have been negative things that have happened in the past, and unfortunately continue to happen. But it's our job to make sure that those things are prevented and also we deal with the legacies in a positive way. So this is the argument that I've been presenting to people at UBC, and it's really starting to cut through. There was some very vocal protest groups, sort of anti-oil and gas, anti-mining. And there was a public seminar that was hosted about 3 years ago, and that was an open debate. Open debate is good. We like that. Between me, someone from the Faculty of Law who was anti-mining, and essentially my argument was very, very simple. It was that if you want all of these things, all this renewable energy, you're going to have to come up with all this metal. And recycling isn't going to do it for us. We'll need to do it's recycling, and there will be a huge need for new materials as well. And that argument's really starting to cut through. In this period of 5 years at UBC, we've had mining going from the least desirable pathway in engineering to the most desirable. And part of that is that there are huge scholarships that are coming in from the industry, and we have one student who's collected about $45,000 in scholarships, and that's been a game changer in terms of our standing. But the students now get it; they understand that we are an industry that is critical for the progress towards the net zero goals. So that's really having an impact. We have a new president, Benoit Bacon, and President Bacon is also very keen to now meet and engage with the mining community at UBC. So in 5 years, it's really turned around. We're having a really good point in our history, which we really want to take advantage of. So what does BRIMM do? BRIMM is researching technologies that are advancing the sustainability of mining. We have an approach which focuses on key issues. We don't try and boil the ocean. So we have four research themes, and two of those research themes are energy and water. One of the things I've been understanding as I go talk to people around the Yukon and around Whitehorse is that energy and water are probably the critical issues for mining. Water is essential for life, for the salmon, for the ecosystems, but mining is also a huge user of water. And when we have legacy mine issues, a lot of those come through the contamination of water. So water is an area where we really focus on. The other one is energy. And I was talking to Minister Stryker yesterday, and he was saying that the casino mine, if it operates, if it operates as planned, will demand about as much electricity as the Yukon currently uses at the moment. I mean, these are staggeringly large projects, which are huge opportunities for Canada. But in terms of energy, we have to really think about how we conserve energy, how we integrate renewable energy, and how we manage energy as responsibly as possible, all the while trying to reduce our carbon footprint ourselves. There's not much point if, as an industry, we help the world achieve net zero targets while elevating our own carbon footprint. So we've got to reach net zero targets as well. One of the things that has been an issue with universities around the world in collaboration with industry is we've had a little bit of a passing the ball over the fence approach to research and development. And this often results in industry actually not getting what they really need. We think, oh, here's a project that industry might like, let's punt it over the fence and see if industry likes it. And a lot of the time industry sort of says, well, that's great, but actually our real problem is this. So what we've been trying to do is I'll give an example which is very topical at the moment. It seems that the word for this conference, if there's a sponsoring word, it's muon. I was out at dinner last night, sort of eating my chili, and on the table I could hear muon, muon, muon. So everyone's interested in muons. UBC also works closely with IMDEX and IDEON. IDEON is the muon company. And one of the challenges that they have, and we slowly understood this over several conversations, is that the geological information is often seen as a cost by the industry, not as an investment. And IDEON and IMDEX were very keen to show that actually it's an investment. It'll stop a lot of problems from happening later on, particularly as you develop the project. And you can with more geotechnical information up front, you can stop a lot of the problems happening later on in the project, and particularly write-downs, which are economically disastrous for the industry. So we went back to the university, we thought about that, and we thought, okay, that needs the Mineral Deposit Research Unit, the MDRU, for the geological side, and it also needs financial economists to really understand the modelling of how we actually understand the value of that investment. And that's turned into an $800,000 research project, which has really been helping IDEON with their muon tomography and IMDEX, with a lot of their geotechnical technology, having better conversations with the industry. So this is the sort of case study work that we do. It's the key to it, I think, is that BRIMM stands in the middle between the industry partners and the researchers, and we're a little bit like a quarterback, or if you're a rugby player, a fly half. We can go back and say, okay, that needs this person, this person, this person, and this person to come together and bring and work on this project. So that's how we work. We're also very interested at the moment in mine closure. We understand that positive legacies are really important. So part of our research is also looking at biodiversity, biodiversity monitoring, and also reclamation. And we have that project I mentioned in partnership with Yukon University on biotechnology and reclamation of mine sites. So BRIMM's approach to tackling industry challenges really revolves around, and I think it's very hard in the world to claim that unique, because we see how we're different, but there's always people who do a lot of work around the world that we don't know about. So, but as far as we know, our approach is fairly unique, because universities are very good at organising in terms of their disciplines, their departments, and professors are usually rewarded for staying in their departments. BRIMM's approach is multidisciplinary. So, for example, when we're talking about monitoring and preventing ARD, acid rock drainage from waste rock piles, we can bring together a professor from the Faculty of Applied Science and the Faculty of Science, and they work on similar things but from very different disciplines, and it's really powerful to get those people working together and working in collaboration with Rogers and Tech. Rogers is the communication company that's looking at doing 5G networks at mine sites, and we're looking at using sensors to monitor the condition and activity of drainage events in waste rock piles. So that's an example of multidisciplinary research. We also have, thanks to Peter Bradshaw's budget, the capacity to catalyse or sort of seed research programs. Often industry will say, look, it's just a concept at this stage, we're not willing to invest, but we see real promise, let us know how it goes. We have a lot of conversations like that. And BRIMM is able to say, okay, well, let's put a PhD student or a master's student on this project, just so we can de-risk it a bit. And that's often a matter of $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. Not very much money in the scheme of things. And that often can start off a research project which can grow into something. And I've got to say that in Canada, really, the mining researchers have gravy poured on their heads. The government is very, very generous in terms of how it sponsors research, and particularly research that's in collaboration with industry. We have nothing like in Australia, we have nothing like the MITAX program that you have here, which is essentially government matching industry funds dollar for dollar on research projects and turning those projects around and approving them in a month. There's nothing in Australia like that. I mean, if a researcher comes to you as an industry proponent with a MITAX project, please do look at it very carefully, because it really is a gift from the government. We also support researchers with relationships, managing the relationships with research partners, and we also help them to write proposals as well. Some of them are very busy people, they don't have time to write big proposals. We pay for proposal writers to write professional proposals that are likely to get funded. There's a few examples of partnerships that have been real standouts for BRIMM since, and this is before I became director in 2020, so BRIMM has been around since 2017. But one of the really strong collaborations has been with the CO2 mineralisation in waste rock, in tailings. And that spun out a company called ARCA, So ARCA is now recipient of the X Prize, which is sponsored by Elon Musk and Tesla, and they've received about several $1 million in research funding, and now they're a company, HP. So that was made possible through collaborations with Canadian companies who sponsored the research at the very early stage. So it's a very significant research project. And we're also very interested in how climate change is creating risks for mine sites. Vale commissioned some work through a big MITAX project looking at some mine sites around the world. Sudbury has different climate risks compared to Indonesia, obviously very different geographies, but climate risks are there nonetheless. You know, with too much water or too little water, water coming in bursts and creating risks for spilling, those sorts of issues. So that's another project. One of the really strong points at UBC is microbiology and biotechnology. And we've spun out a few companies. One is called Tersa Earth. So Tersa Earth, TERSA, uses microbial fuel cells to clean up wastewater and recover metals. So the bugs are doing that job. We also just finished a large project, $14 million project with the BC Digital Supercluster Initiative, and that was in partnership with Teck and Rio Tinto. So that's about finding bugs that do different jobs on processing minerals, recovering or reclaiming mine sites, monitoring biodiversity. It's like a library for a genomic library for microbial organisms that can do different jobs on mine sites. So we're partnering with technology developers in biotech all around the world to show them how they can use different microbes for different tasks on mine sites. So that's MMAP. That's a very important one. We're also partnering with companies on how to use technologies for decarbonisation targets. So we've been working with Teck on carbon capture, and also how do you use technologies like microwave that can be powered by the grid to reduce your carbon footprint. So there's a number of projects there that we work on in partnership with companies. I mentioned that we're structured into 4 research themes, 4 research programs: biotechnology, mine energy systems. So biotechnology is led by 2 researchers and has a nice collaboration with Yukon University. I'm going to see him this afternoon. I look forward to updating the collaboration with them. It also looks at issues of mineral processing. So we have a large hydrometallurgy group that looks at biohydrometallurgy as well for mineral processing, and also that group is also very good at thinking about how do we recover and valorize waste metals. So for example, a fertilizer company that produces gypsum has a lot of waste rock, waste piles, which are actually very, very high in titanium and rare earths. So we've been working on a circuit to actually recover those rare earths using microbial technology. So it sounds all pretty science fiction, but these are things that really are possible now in the future of mining. Water stewardship, I mentioned. We're very interested in climate risk. We're also interested in things like water balance modelling at mine sites. We're interested also in contamination of water by effluent from mine sites. So one of the major areas where we've been working is in the Elk Valley with the selenium problems there in the Elk Valley. A lot of those come from legacy sites, but the selenium and the I guess the lack of public information about the selenium has really led to distrust between the Tanaha First Nation and the mining industry. So we're trying to work with both sides to do research into not only having transparent monitoring and assessment of selenium, but also how do we treat that selenium and remove it from the ecosystem. If you're at all skeptical about the use of biotechnology, put in bioreactors the size of swimming pools, Olympic swimming pools, to remove selenium from wastewater. And these bioreactors are based on a microbe that was discovered by one of our researchers that can actually remove selenium from this wastewater. So I've said there, look, there's potential other themes, and this slide is a bit out of date, but one theme that we've just launched this year is in biodiversity and natural capital. So that leverages a lot of our work that we do with the Department of Forestry. So we can use DNA analysis to understand biodiversity. Is biodiversity being compromised by mining? Because a lot of the miners now have positive targets for biodiversity. We're also looking at how trees and forests can be used to capture carbon in the soil and in the ecosystem. So that can be used as part of the transition to net zero targets for mining companies. And that project as well is also using biochar. So we have a proprietary technology in UBC for making biochar that can actually not only put carbon back in the soil and take waste wood material and use it to rejuvenate damaged mine sites, but we can also use that to actually the carbon the carbon in the biochar actually absorbs heavy metals as well. So there's a lot of, I'm just giving you a flavour of what we're doing, but there's a lot of things that are going on. I think the future for us, what that looks like, is that we will start to build more partnerships in the region, in the Elk Valley, in the Yukon, and internationally, and develop more collaborations for more impact on the ground. So I just want to finish there, and thank you for your attention, but also thank you for such a warm welcome here in Yukon. It's been very good. Thank you.
Any questions or
Yeah.
comments?
I'm curious to know more about your renewable hybrid energy systems, what you guys are working on, thinking about.
Yeah. So the question was, what are the work we're doing on hybrid energy systems? So one of the challenges, and this is particularly in the context of Arctic mines, is a lot of these Arctic mines are off-grid. What are what possibilities of combining renewable energy, solar and wind power, and what about energy conservation, heat recovery? What combination of technologies could you use at a mine site to really to reduce the reliance, particularly on diesel? So we did for example, we did a project in Nunavut where the original mine plan had millions of litres of diesel being trucked in over an ice road, and we said, well, there's exploratory conversations with the company, which was MMG. Maybe there's a different way of doing it. Could we do some high-level modelling? So we worked out with a combination of technologies, you could have the mine operating with about half the level of diesel, and the economics stacked up, particularly when you're talking about diesel being trucked in. So we're looking not so much at creating new technologies, but how do you integrate technologies together to design a different mine energy system that's less reliant on fossil fuels. Does that make sense?
Any ideas on small nuclear reactors?
Yeah, that's something we're looking at. We've been looking fairly closely at hydrogen, which is a different story. We see some roles for hydrogen, but SMRs are really interesting, and we're keeping a watching eye on that. There's no doubt the technology works. We've been powering aircraft carriers and submarines for decades with these reactors. The big question mark is the economics, because while it provides a stable baseload of power, it's the levelised cost of energy is going to be critical as to whether or not these are viable. Yeah, but like a lot of people, we're watchers at the moment, and we'll start to think about the modelling. Yeah.
Well, thanks very much, John. That was very, very interesting. Lots of interesting research ideas there. Just want to say coffee break now, sponsored by Borealis Fuels, and session will start again back here at 10:30. And it's a panel on advances in environmental technologies and practical examples. And I think it's going to be a really interesting presentation. It's the whole hour and a half. So invite everybody to come back at 10:30, and thank you for being here this morning.